Hey guys, Patrick here. This is video number 5 and today we're going to be talking about something that's related to the previous video I did to do with ITIL. Today we're going to be talking about incident management, problem management and change management, which are sections of what we cover in ITIL, but they're also things that may come up in job interviews or you may see on job descriptions or as a particular requirement to perhaps move up one level or move up to a certain role internally if you are in that situation. So there's 3 main things and they're all primarily related to service management within ITIL. If you want to understand more about ITIL and what I mean by that, then I have another video explaining that. So we've got problem management, change management and incident management. Let's start with change management. So change management is essentially, officially it's described as enabling beneficial changes to be made to production systems or to any system. Now what do we mean by that? Well, we've got beneficial meaning a change with good intent, i.e. what we're altering or what we're changing should be for the better. The end result of this should be better than where we are now. We've got with minimal disruption as well, so also that whatever we're doing, it should not disrupt the users, it should not cause an outage, it should not cause a larger issue, and if it does require any downtime, we've agreed to downtime with the users or with the client. It's essentially, you can think of it as if you were to go and see a surgeon and he says, we need to do a few things to correct your issue, and he's going to talk you through everything he's going to do and how he's going to do it, and each stage and the pros and cons of both, the risks associated and how he's going to manage those risks. In an IT context, for example, that could be something like we need to increase the amount of space that the email archiving system has so it can continue to archive emails. Now, again, we would have to say, as part of a change management process, which I'm going to talk in a second, we would have to say, why are we doing this? What's the benefit? Why should it be done? Why? What would happen if it was skipped, and so on. Now, a change management process, again with ITIL, this is a kind of a rule of thumb, a baseline model that IT departments tend to use as a template and mold into their operational environment. But a typical change management process, which you might need to be aware of, although this will differ from company to company, can involve things like having a meeting where changes are discussed regularly. Sometimes we call that a CAB meeting or a change advisory board meeting. Having a process for where we establish that we need to alter something. We need to understand the impact of making that change and also the impact of potentially not making that change. We need to outline how we're going to do it. We need to outline the risks associated with making the change and risks of not making the change, the level of necessity, whether this is something that is mission critical, and if it isn't done, we will have an outage, we will have downtime, we will have a disaster, disruption and so on. Or whether it's something that if we don't do it, we won't necessarily have a huge problem, but we may encounter another small problem later on, or a smaller issue could arise later down the line. This may involve perhaps agreeing downtime with the client. Perhaps if this is going to take down their main system, we need to agree with them that this is going to be done at a time where it's not going to cause them any issues and it won't cause another problem that you have to fix. And again, this may involve things like monitoring exactly when this work is done. It may be audited, it may be reviewed, and then it may be the changes themselves as a group may be reviewed periodically, whether that's once a week, month, quarter, half year, 1 year, so on and so forth. Now, that's a very basic explanation of what change management is and how it works. For those of you thinking, well, this sounds like common sense and I don't really feel I need to know it, I can understand that because there was a point when I felt like that. However, having that understanding and appreciation, although every company has a slightly different way of doing change management for different reasons, it really is a good thing to just bear in mind and have a consideration for, because you will have that little extra push that will help you stand out from other people, that over time will really help propel you. And if you can demonstrate that you have that commercial awareness, that operational understanding of managing risk, understanding the implications of what you're doing, outlining how the risks will be minimized, mitigated, eliminated, or brought down to tolerable and acceptable levels, and how they will actually meet the needs for the client, regulatory needs, legal needs, any other business need, and so on, then that will really help you stand out. So again, that's change management, essentially enabling beneficial changes to be made with minimal disruption. So next thing we've got to talk about is problem management. You can effectively think of these as ongoing issues that have a small amount of impact, but maybe the frequency of those issues being reported is quite high. So it's officially described as the minimizing impact of incidents that cannot be prevented. So as an example, a previous employer of mine, we had an issue where people with PDF files, they were clicking file print, and it took a long time, over 10 seconds at least, for the section to come up where they can choose the printer and how many copies they want, all the printing preferences. And we went through and we started linking all the incidents, which I'll talk about in a second, to this problem. And again, this was a thing that it didn't necessarily stop the users from working altogether completely, but it was a disruptive thing that kept on happening again and again and again and again and again. We ended up with hundreds and hundreds of occurrences of this in the space of a month or two. I mean, this was back when I was working for a company that has 5,000 staff, so that will happen a little bit quicker than a company that has 500 users. Now, again, problem management is much more of a wider pit. Problem management can be for any type of issue, any type of, any level of how complicated it is. So it could be a basic issue like the one I've just described, or it could be an issue to do with when we copy data from this region in Azure to that region in Azure, we notice that the replication between the other two sites we occupy stops working. We have to always restart them, but when we restart them, the replication in the other direction starts failing, and it causes one of our servers to lose connections. That's more of a complicated one. Now, that's still a problem because, you know, although we may be able to mitigate that very quickly and have something that restores things to normal, we again don't really know the root cause. And companies will have their own methods as to how they go about finding root causes and how they go about finding what's actually causing the problem. And that can involve recording all the incidents, all the occurrences of that particular problem, linking them to incidents where people have reported them, perhaps gathering lots of data and sending it off to the vendors to have them assist, or perhaps looking at websites and other resources, or a colleague with special expertise. Because the thing is that as we begin to gather more and more examples, then sometimes the picture of what's actually causing this issue becomes a little bit clearer. You know, if you can think about if you're, you know, somewhere that's very foggy and you can't really see very far, but as just a little bit more fog starts to clear, you can see another meter in front, and a bit more, you can see 2 or 3 meters in front. And then after that, you can see 10 meters in front, and then you can see everywhere. It's almost like that. So that's problem management. And then we've got incident management, which for those of you who do work as technicians, this is the one you're probably dealing with almost every day. Incident management could be defined as returning an IT service to normal. This is essentially, you know, the crux, the main thing that technicians deal with, amongst other things. But again, it's like saying the user wants to do this, but it's gone wrong. The user wants to print a Word document, but for some reason when they press the print button, nothing happens. Printer doesn't print, and I try again, and it still doesn't happen. And perhaps one of us techies log on and we notice, oh, okay, the user's actually sent it to the wrong printer, or oh, okay, the driver's actually wrong, or oh, okay, they're sending it to a printer that doesn't exist anymore. And that's just something that we learn over time as technicians. It's like a muscle. It builds up over time. It doesn't really happen overnight. It's essentially more to do with if something has gone wrong for the users, what's our mentality and strategy for restoring it back to normal and eliminating this problem? If you could think of it as almost having like a needle that moves from the bad, it goes into the bad, but we want to move the users back into the good. You know, we want to move the users out of the red back into the green. You know, do we have a procedure for perhaps of, if I log on and fix this issue and the Word document prints, do I just close it straight away? Or do I perhaps wait a little bit and tell the users, I believe this issue is fixed, but please could you do a bit more testing and just try printing a few other things just so we're sure. Perhaps that's a type of an extra bit of strategy that's involved in the incident management process. Perhaps the way the incident is documented, it has to have very specific things recorded. Some companies don't really care about what you write down in your incident descriptions if you're going to resolve it yourself, because nobody else has to do with it. But that's essentially a very simplified explanation of what it is. It's essentially looking at restoring IT services to normal, and that could again be for a very basic issue like I can't print, I can't log on, I can't get to this website doesn't load, website doesn't do what I would expect. It could also be linked to things like outages as well, which we tend to refer to as major incidents, and that's perhaps when an entire service for a large number of people has stopped working, or a business critical function has stopped working. So actually one of my previous employers, we had an incident where the phone system stopped working, and it's because one of the services on the server that runs the phone system stopped, and the phone system basically just said, oh, this thing's not running, I don't know what to do, I'm going to stop. And all of a sudden nobody can make phone calls and everybody's phones just rebooted themselves. Now that's more of an outage, that's more of like think of it as almost like an incident on steroids, an incident that's affecting a huge number of people, or an incident that has hindered huge numbers of people from doing their work, and the impact of it, both financially in terms of money lost, in terms of money coming in, but also the quantitative impact of it, the qualitative impact of it in terms of, you know, reputation towards IT, the respect towards technicians and the technology in use and so on. Now this is something I might make another video about, because it's good to have just a basic understanding of outages and what you need to learn about them. Not necessarily the technical aspect, but more the operational aspect. So you should now have a little bit better of an understanding as to change management, incident management, and problem management. Again, we discussed that change management is essentially to do with enabling beneficial changes to be made with minimal disruption. Problem management to do with minimizing the impact of incidents that cannot be resolved, cannot be prevented. And then we also talked about incident management, and that's more to do with returning IT services to normal, which for those of you who work as technicians or who are thinking about becoming technicians, that'll be probably the most common thing you deal with. That's pretty much what our job is, to make these things work, amongst other things like deal with requests for, you know, service requests that comes in, like please set up one of this, please configure that, blah 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 blah. So that's it. You should now have a better understanding of those. This is related to the ITIL concepts I was talking about in the previous video. For those of you who are taking your ITIL exam, you'll learn about these things in a bit more detail and learn about how they're all linked to each other, and the intricacies of how each of them have their own components and blah 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 blah. But if you were previously not sure about what incident management or problem management or change management actually meant, then hopefully by now you should have a better idea, and you should be able to understand the differences between them. So if somebody does ask you this in an interview, or if you're having a conversation about this with somebody, you should know the answer. So that's it. I will probably be making another video later in the week. It's probably going to be something IT related. It might be about major incidents, which are just another thing that's good to understand. But I'm also thinking about making videos about soft skills that have helped me, or that would help someone who's starting out as a technician. But stick around, and you'll hopefully see those very soon. So thanks very much. Bye.